Shabbat Shalom. Well, as I promised earlier in the service, reading this week's Torah portion this year, I was struck again by the section close to the beginning. In fact, it's the section that I actually got asked to read today. It's about our relationship with a subject that is very close to our hearts. Indeed, it sits directly below our hearts, and more than often, we completely overlook it, and that subject is food. And if you want to look at the passage, you don't have to, because I'm going to be talking about it, but if you want to, it's on page 1040. That if you were here during the Torah reading, you probably read it already. And this is a passage where the land is described very much in terms of gastronomy. So first of all, Moses mentions the manna. Yes, this is the manna that you lived on all of those years in the desert. And then he lists out all of the deliciousnesses of the land, the 7 species. If you want to know what the 7 species are, you should look at our Torah covers, okay, because they're all on there. And then he describes the water supply as well. So this is a land that's not going to run out of resources. He points out that the land is going to be abundant in food. He specifically states that in it the people will lack nothing. And then we get the commandment that is so familiar to us because those who designed it picked it up and stuck it straight in the grace after meals. Ve'achalta, ve'savata, uverachta et Adonai Elohecha. You shall eat and be satisfied and bless the Lord your God. But what is interesting, or at least what stuck out to me this year, is that only 2 verses later we get exactly the same construction. It was a piece that I think Vicky read. Yes, ve'achalta ve'savata comes up again, but this time it comes up as a negative. And it initiates a whole gradual process of unraveling that is going to lead to destruction. It's a process of degradation, a process of entropy. We will have eaten, then we're going to build gorgeous houses, then we're going to live in them, then we're going to get rich, then we're going to get complacent and flabby, and we're going to forget about God. And because this is the book of Devarim, as soon as you forget about God, you know that the ending is not going to be happy, and indeed, avod tovedun, destruction is going to follow on the heels of that. So my question for this week was, okay, why is this? Why, on the one hand, so close together, do we get that eating and being satisfied is a mitzvah? And why, on the other hand, do we get that eating and being satisfied is the starting point of a process that is going to lead to unraveling and destruction? And what I'm going to suggest is that, of course, we know this. It's all about how we do it. It's all about how we eat. It's all about how we are satisfied. And we know it's a truism to say we are what we eat. That's literally true. My teacher, Rabbi, points out that food turns into us. Yes, we quite literally are what we eat. But our relationship with our food is also a microcosm of all of our other relationships. Our relationship with our food says something about how we relate to each other, and something about how we relate to the world, and something else about how we relate to God. And at the moment, those relationships, all of those relationships through our relationship with our food, need a little bit of attention, I want to say. For example, there was a report not so very long ago that shows that Orthodox Jewish communities lead the world in pediatric obesity. They surveyed a couple of Orthodox Jewish communities in Chicago, and they concluded, these are nasty statistics, 1/3 of the adults were overweight, 1/4 of the adults were obese, but over half of the children in the community were overweight, and 1/4 as children were already obese. And they tried to work out what the reasons were. They thought that the reasons were specific to that community. Great big meals, sedentary lifestyle, busy lifestyle, a lifestyle where something's got to give, and what gives is exercise, and the time that it takes to prepare low-fat meals. And for kids in Jewish day schools, but not our day school, I want to say, a long school day that doesn't allow much time for sports or other physical activities. It's time, by the way, for a shout out to two of our wonderful day school teachers. Coach Terry, the basketball coach, he's hard to miss, he's about 6'3", and Chaim from Israel, who is one of the strongest, one of the fittest gentlemen it has ever been my good fortune to come across. If you need a large amount of something lifted or a big door opened, ask Chaim, he'll do it for you. But what goes on in our day school is not, it would appear, a truism for the relationship with food and fitness that goes on in other schools. Then there's the amount of food that we waste. This is a study from Arizona's Bureau of Applied Research Anthropology. They undertook an 8-year study to see how much of what we buy ends up in the trash. And it turns out that $75 billion worth of food in this country, $75 billion worth, goes pretty much straight from the cart to the trash can every year. If you like percentages, that's 14%. Look at your cart next time you're in the supermarket. Nationally, we throw away 14% of what's in that cart. And if you like figures, it's $600 per family per year. Straight from the shelf to the trash. Or, if you want, we can look at the way that our food is produced. And we all remember the scandal of Rubashkin's. And that story has now retreated into history, but how many of us really know where our food comes from? The way that food is produced at the moment means that we are no longer familiar with the process that goes into producing our food. We don't know the people in the chain. Personally, I think that one of the reasons the farmers market is so popular, I've bumped into many of you at the farmers market in Studio City, is that it gives us back a little bit of what it means to have food in the context of relationship with the people who grow it and with the deliciousness of what it's like when it's produced. And if you want to take it on a global level, there's more. There's a lot more that we could say about what is going on globally with our food supply. There's a conference being held this week up at Davis. I wanted to go, couldn't get there this time around. Will go again, would love to take a group from the shul. This is a group called Chazon, founded by my countryman Nigel Savage. He's savage by name, savage by nature. And he, it very, very well worth meeting. And Chazon is a Jewish food justice group that engages itself with what is our food, where does it come from, what is our relationship with it, how should that be, how can we repair what needs to be repaired when we come to our food. And the food at their conference, by the way, predictably is organic, impeccably produced, delicious food. I recommend it. But back to the Torah, back to the Parsha. What can we, as it were, take away, you'll pardon the pun, what is our Torah to go today? What can we take from today's passage and apply directly into our lives? I think there are three things, three main elements. If you remember, there was the manna, and there was the mention of the resources of the land, and then there was that triple commandment to eat and be satisfied and blessed. So the first thing I want to suggest is that we should remember the lesson that the manna taught us. Once upon a time, food fell from the sky. You got up in the morning, you opened your door, and there was breakfast, lunch, and dinner lying there on the grass in front of you, and all you had to do was collect it. But our relationship with food is not like that anymore. The people are told in the Torah, once they enter the land of Israel, they're going to have to go through all of the complex steps about food. We need to grow it, we need to harvest it, we need to store it, we need to prepare it, we need to consume it, we need to decide what we're going to do with what's left over. And I think that today we need to remember the lesson of the manna. Today, if we are in a manna mentality about our food, oh, we just go out and we eat it, we don't really notice what we're buying, we don't really notice what we consume. The manna is there to tell us, hello, time to stop. The relationship that human beings have with food should not be that you get up in the morning, idly scratch your head, and there it is for you to consume. No, human beings should be involved with their food. So that's the first lesson. Open your awareness, get involved. Second, resources. I think that we take abundance for granted. And the example that I want to give is an example that Rob Eshman brought in the Jewish Journal a couple of years ago when he was talking about that institution that is the free Kiddush. And he was pointing out how many people complain about Kiddush. Oh, we don't like that. It's the same every week. Why can't it be different? And so on and so on. And he says that we have all unwillingly, in our attempt to be generous, created a culture where we end up belly aching, you'll pardon the pun, about what comes for free. And he pointed out that it isn't really free. We know, we Jews are supposed to know that everything out there around us and everything inside us is only on loan from God. And similarly, our Kiddushin come from somewhere. They are provided. They manifest not only the food that's actually there, but also our generosity. Whether it's the generosity of our bar mitzvah families, and when there is no bar mitzvah, it's the generosity of this community. It's the applied generosity of our sisterhood. And week after week, our families from our community share their joy with us by way of feeding us and turning us into more of us. And week after week, members of our sisterhood use their time and their ingenuity and our resources as a synagogue to make sure that there is food that is delicious. And I was told today that somebody has brought us a bottle of wine, has come to the shul. Thank you. Let me give you a thank you from the bimah for the bottle of wine that you have brought to shul for us to consume. And none of it comes for free, and we should remember that. And then there's the question of resources that operates in the wider context, that what is cheap on the shelf in the supermarket might not actually be cheap. Sometimes our food is not fair, and our tradition teaches us that that is not okay. So the second lesson, that lyrical mention of the 7 species, is there to remind us that it is our duty, our sacred duty as Jews, to be aware of what we consume. And the third duty that we're under is to bless. Now this one is challenging, yeah? At the moment we consume, we need to find that moment to consume mindfully, to notice that what we are putting inside our bodies comes from something, whether it's community, whether it's world resources, or whether it's from a higher place that some of us may call God and some of us may call something else. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we notice, we take that moment and we notice where the food is coming from. Now, the rabbis of our tradition, in their wisdom, have provided us with multiple brachot to fit into that moment. Some of them we say so often we don't notice anymore. We're going to do 2 at the end of the service. Borei Pri Hagafen over wine, Hamotzi Lechem min haaretz over bread. But how many of us know that there is a bracha that you can say over delicious oil? Yes? How many of us know that there is a bracha that you can say over fresh herbs? How many know that there's a bracha that you could say as you break a cinnamon stick? I encourage us to explore those brachot and to make our eating a sacred act, an act that begins and ends with a blessing. We have this tiny opportunity to insert a holy moment into our day. We need to do more of it. So I want to invite you. You can begin at Kiddush today. Help yourself to your favorite thing at Kiddush and learn the bracha to make over it. And if you don't know it in Hebrew, make one in English. We don't care. What is important is that you notice that moment. Savor the anticipation, remember where the food is coming or the drink is coming from, and then eat it or drink it. And I want to end with the words of one of our own congregants and another suggestion for an exercise for all of you, because what would a rabbi be if I didn't give you homework for the week? So last year we ran 4 workshops in conjunction with Hazon, that organization that I mentioned. And as an exercise at the end of those first workshops, I suggested that participants journal their food intake for a single day. That they simply take note of everything that they put inside their body for a day, with the idea of being mindful of what it was and where it came from, and just to see what that produced. And here is an extract. The next week, Julie Kinrich, some of you may know her from our congregation, she is a writer, and she came back with the most beautiful piece. And here is an extract, and it's gorgeous. I have her permission to share it with you. Are you sitting comfortably? Friday, April the 1st, a day of mindful eating and drinking by Julie Kinrich. 6:30 a.m., freshly ground coffee, 1% milk, stevia plant-based sweetener, water, allergy medicine. Baruch atah Adonai, creator of the universe, for the coffee beans which traveled a great distance, for the growers who probably aren't making much money at it, for the packagers, warehouses, accountants, lawyers, shipping clerks, transportation engineers, grocery store stockists and cashiers, and especially for the unnamed, unknown ancestors who first figured out that if you take this green bean and dry it and roast it and grind it and run boiling water through it, it tastes good. For the milk, which no doubt came from a bunch of cows, not just one, living a not-so-happy life somewhere in California. And for the scientists who figured out how to take out some of the fat, but leave all of the taste and mouthfeel. For this artificial sweetener, which is, what the heck is it? I really haven't got a clue where this came from. Who came up with the idea that some plant could be used as sweetener? Nor how the plant was grown, harvested, or rendered, so that I could open cute little one-serving packages to pour into my coffee. But bless them all, please, because they're keeping my butt from getting bigger. For water. Oh my goodness, of course you know, but where would we be without water? We are something like 98% water, and your beautiful earth is mostly covered in water. And if I think about it much longer, I'm going to get very, very sad about all the people in this world who don't have access to clean, fresh, affordable water. Oh, nuts. I got sad. Maybe that's not so bad. It forces me to be more grateful. It goes on. But to return to the Torah portion, to return to where I began, Devarim is in the way, that book is in the way often of presenting us with very stark choices. I mentioned this morning we talk about consequences. Do this and it'll be okay. Do that and it won't go so well. And this is another one of our choices. We can eat mindlessly. And if we eat mindlessly, then our eating and being satisfied opens the path to destruction. Or we can eat mindfully. And if we do, our satisfaction opens the path to joy, to amazement, to consciousness, to connection, and to blessing. The book of Devarim is full of choices. What will you choose today? What will you choose this week? B'te'avon. Shabbat Shalom.